What's going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to show you guys how people who live out in the country get their water along with my setup, so stay tuned. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Carrasco Ranch. My name is Robert, if this is your first time tuning in. So I'm going to walk through and show you guys my setup, how I set it up, answer some questions that I've received, and just kind of give you a breakdown of how it operates. So this video is kind of brought up because I had a quote-unquote neighbor. When I say neighbor, it means down the road, down the county road. It's not like your typical, they live right beside me because we're out here in the country. So there's acres that separates us. But one of the questions was, how do you get your water? Where are you getting your water from? Who is your water supplier? And I was like, what do you mean water supplier? We're out here in the country. So come to find out, these people don't live in Texas. They came from another state, and I guess they're used to living in the city. Well, in the city, you get your water from your city, city water supplies, water treatment. Well, out here in the country, you have to dig a well. I'm going to explain all that here shortly, so stay tuned. So when I was explaining it to my quote-unquote neighbors, they didn't know that the water was underground, and I am thinking that they assumed that there was just some water supplier out here or something. I'm not really sure. So for those of y'all who don't know, who are from the city, there's water underneath. There's an aquifer underneath. Basically, think of it like an underground lake. An underground lake that you drill a hole down into that lake to pull water up from the lake to supply to your home, pond, or wherever else you may need water for your livestock when you're out here in the country. So I'm going to put a clip of the water well being drilled at the end of the video, so definitely stay tuned for that if you want to see how it even gets done. So I'm going to turn the camera around and kind of walk you through it and show you the setup. Alright guys, so here's my setup. So first off, we're going to start with the heart of the system, which is this. So I have it kind of storage in here, but this is a water well. So this thing goes down hundreds of feet down into the aquifer, or that quote-unquote lake underwater. So from there, we have to have power to supplement that pump. There's a pump that drops down inside that casing. The casing is that white PVC right there. So there's a pump that goes in there, and that will pump the water up hundreds and hundreds of feet. So depending on how deep you go is the size of pump you're going to need. So we have water running outside, which you can't see. It's behind that little white bucket here. So that's the main power source there. I have a kill switch here. So if, in case anything goes wrong, I just turn this off and it'll cut off the supply so I can work on it in there. From there, so we have two different setups here. So actually three, I guess, really. So that water's coming up through that casing, as you can see there. The water's going to come in through here. So in case these valves are ever shut off, I'll explain these valves here in a little bit. There's a pressure release valve right there. So if these are ever closed off and it builds up too much pressure, it's just going to shoot water out of that pressure release valve. And then we also wrote down instructions for people who say I'm not in town and I need someone to come check this for me. They can just follow those directions there. So yeah, so the water's going to come in through here, and it's going to meet up here at the four-way T here. Oh, I guess it's not a T, the four-way PVC fitting there. So this one's going to go out to the lake. So I have a pond on the property. This is unfiltered water, comes straight from the ground, comes in, feeds the lake, goes down in there. This is in case I ever need a water plant, or I just need water. I have a little spigot here. So this one here is the one we keep open all the time. This one is filtered water. So this is actually what I would typically drink or use for more purposes other than just dumping into a lake or a pond. So it gets filtered inside this filter here. It runs up, and that pump is really strong because it will pump that water all the way up on this here. And then it enters this big old tank here. So this is a 3,000 gallon tank. I'll kind of give you some prices also in case you guys are interested, and also link everything down below in the description for anyone who needs some equipment for their water well or is interested in purchasing some of the equipment I have on here. Everything will be down below for Amazon And that's usually where you'll find the best prices. So yeah, there's a 3,000 gallon tank. Real quickly, so this is a big one here. I'm just going to turn around real quick. So when you are purchasing your float, so I'm going to get to the float here in a little bit, but I have a float switch. A float switch is what drops down inside that tank. So it's just dangling by a wire, right? So it has a little ball inside that float switch. So whenever it drops down, it'll turn the pump on for the water well to pump water into the tank. So the tank is always full. And whenever the tank fills up, the little floats up, boom, the ball runs on the other side of that float and it shuts the pump off. So it's always keeping up with this tank no matter what. So there's always water inside of there. I'm going to tell you right now, go with a sump pump float switch. Don't go with a traditional water float switch. So sump pump switches are heavier grade material. They're more durable and they'll last you a lot longer. Those typically have a million cycles, million cycle warranty on them, or a million cycle use, versus a regular water well switch is going to have about a 50,000 to 100,000 usage. So if you buy a sump pump, it's more likely going to outlive you, versus if you buy the other one, you may have to change it out once or twice in your lifetime. So and it's not that much more. It's like twice as much, but it's not like 40-50 bucks, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and walk you again through it. So get the camera right here. So yeah, so the water's gonna go inside there, that little float switch. It's set for about 2,800. So once it fills up to about 2,800, it'll shut off and it'll always stay with 2,800 gallons inside this tank. That float switch, I just drilled a hole through this tank here. You'll see that little black wire running in there. So there's a black wire that drops down in there. I drilled a little hole. I put a little rubber grommet around the wire itself. The little rubber grommet has like a little groove that goes around the donut that hugs the seal of the plastic. So that way nothing can get in there. But on top of that, I also siliconed it just to be extra sure that no other moisture outside is going to get inside, no bugs or anything. So it's sealed with a rubber grommet. There's seal on top and seal underneath inside the tank to just double secure and make sure nothing gets in there. And then I have a little union there in case anything happens. I can just take it off from there and work on it. Makes it a little easier. So real quickly, I'll back up. These tanks are gonna run you about, I think I paid $2,300 for it, $2,200 for it. They may have gone up now. They do make bigger ones, and again, I'll link all this down below. They do make bigger ones. You can order them online and they can deliver them for you. Everything will be down below, like I said. So yeah, so now we're gonna go down here. So here, if you work in the oil fields, which I know a lot of my subscribers are oil field related, you know a lot of this stuff already. But you have your fittings here, you have your valve here, and then I recommend you get a flexi attachment here. And the reason is because your pump, which we're going to get to here in a minute, is going to give off a lot of vibration, and this will kind of absorb it because it's flexible, and it'll absorb a lot of that vibration so you don't start tearing apart here, start getting leaks here and stuff like that. So if you'll notice here, we had a little bit of a leakage. So what happened was this tank, when it has 3,000 gallons of water, it weighs a freaking shit ton. It weighs a lot. So I put the pea gravel down there. Also, real quickly, you don't want to use there's different manufacturers that call it pea gravel, but you want to use the pea gravel that is rounded like this and not pointy, because if we have so much weight inside that tank, those little pointy quote unquote pea gravel that they're calling it is going to puncture this tank and the warranty is not going to cover it. So I've seen a couple people that have really screwed up their tank by putting the wrong type of rock underneath it, and now they're shit out of luck because the warranty doesn't cover it. So make sure you get, it's called a river rock pea gravel, or they just call it pea gravel, but make sure it's the rounded pebbles, not the crushed up pea gravel. So yeah, so I did moisten it down, sprayed it down with the water hose, packed it in. Even after that, it still sank a couple inches, which it threw off this here. It threw off this right here, and it started bowing out because it was pushing against this here, and with the weight, it was just still packing in. So I had to cut down some of that PVC and then reseal it and do it again. But that was after months of it just sitting here because it was just so much weight. So yeah, so back to this. I'm going to take you inside the pump here in a little bit. But yeah, so you make sure you get a flexible attachment, because if not, you're going to start causing issues here with the tank itself with the vibration. So real quickly, I forgot to mention on these valves here. So this one always stays on. This is the water that goes into the tank to keep the tank always full. Like I said, this wire here is that float switch that I was talking about. It'll always keep the tank full. So in case I ever want to put water into the lake, what I do is I shut this valve off here and turn this one on. When I open up that one, I can turn it on manually with the toggle switch right there, on and off. So I can also control it manually aside from automatically. The automatic portion is just in case I'm out of town on vacation. I know that the tank is always going to have water. But whenever I come back and I need to put water into the lake, I can manually do that as well. So that's how we set that up. Just wanted to mention that. All right, guys. So now we are going to enter where I keep the pump. I keep everything protected. I built like a little doghouse for this thing. We did run electricity in here as well. So the water's going to come out of this big tank. It's going to come in and get pulled from this little Drummond pump. So right here you have a check valve to make sure that none of the water goes back in once it's pulled in towards the tank itself. That's the little flexible deal I was telling you about. And then we just did all the plumbing for here and here. So first thing, when you get one of these things, you want to make sure you put water inside these things. This, I will put the link down below for this thing. It's worked really, really good. And they're very inexpensive compared to some of the higher end brands. It's worked really good. So I'll put this down below as well. So yeah, make sure you prime it. Make sure you put water in this thing, because if you do not, you're going to burn the motor and it's not going to be covered under warranty. So make sure you always put water in here. So this is why I have these little bottles of water here, is in case I ever need to work on it. I remember, hey, I need to put water in there. So yeah, they have little pressure regulators here, and usually if it drops below 30, it's going to kick on, and it stops at 40, it's pressure regulated. So yeah, so it's going to pull the water, it's going to push it up, and then we have another check valve here, so that way the line is always pressurized downstream. We ran water because the pump needs, we ran electricity because this thing needs electricity to run. So we ran some electricity, we threw it in when we were throwing the concrete. But yeah, so that's gonna be pretty much the setup for this. All right, guys, so I hope this helped you guys out for your own setup. I figured if somebody had a question about it, there's probably multiple people looking online how to even set this stuff up. Where does the water even come from? What is a water well? How is it done? Like I said, stay tuned. I'm going to put the little clip of one being done, my water well being done at the end. But yeah, so I hope it answered some questions. I hope it helped some of you guys out. Maybe you have some setups at home that you just don't know how to set up correctly. Like I said, I'm going to link all this stuff down below. And I kind of gave you a quick little walkthrough. If you have any more questions, just drop it down below as well. I set most of this stuff up myself, so I know how to do it. So if you have questions, drop it down below. Yeah. Without further ado, guys, appreciate you guys watching. And until next time, be careful, be good, take care, and God bless. And we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye. Just started drilling. Hopefully we hit water around 160. That's what we're hoping for. We're going all the way up to 350 to 400, depending on what we need.